Thank you for joining us. We're here today with Dr. Norman Harris. He's an educator in our community. Thank you for coming.
It's my pleasure to be here.
And we'd like to get to know you a little bit. Can you tell our audience something about your background?
Oh, absolutely. I was born in a rip-roaring community right outside of Duck Hill, Mississippi, which you may know as being a few miles from Carbondale, Mississippi.
Okay.
Not ringing a bell. Actually, I was born in Grenada, Mississippi.
Okay.
And grew up in Gary, Indiana. All right. We moved there, I guess, when I was about 5, and like a lot of other people who moved from Mississippi to the north, our family was working at the steel mill. My father was at the steel mill, and
part of the migration.
Part of the migration, yeah, and that didn't work out, so to speak. So my mom ended up raising 3 girls and me by herself, and did an extraordinary job. In terms of my interest in what we're doing here, I really want to credit her with being such a profound inspiration, an individual who was always able to find a way out of no way. I mean, it sounds cliche-ish, but she's
real.
It's very real, very real.
Very real.
Talking about a woman who didn't graduate high school until after all of her children had, and then she went back to night school and got her high school diploma. She has Alzheimer's now, and it's very difficult to imagine her that way, but she is a very strong force in my life. In fact, got me involved in Upward Bound,
really?
Which, I don't know if you know that program. It's one
Yes.
of the, okay. During that brief moment in the 60s,
Yeah.
when we were sort of the focus of attention, it was one of those programs that was intended to take promising young folk out of the hood, so to
Right.
speak, and expose them to a college education. Well, for me, it took. A summer at Purdue University led to one thing after another, and got my undergraduate degree at Indiana University, and then went on after reading about a program at Atlanta University, a new black PhD in political science. I said, I got to be there. I got to do that. So in 1972, I stuffed all of my worldly belongings into my Volkswagen Beetle and limped from Gary, Indiana, down to Atlanta, and got immediately involved in Maynard Jackson's campaign. That was just an extraordinary period.
Those were such exciting times.
They were.
Definitely.
They were. I mean, the Maynard was just truly a remarkable politician. I had worked as a high school student in the 1968 election of Richard Hatcher, the first black mayor of Gary, Indiana.
Right.
And my mother had always been involved in politics. So when I got here, it was just a natural, yeah.
So you've always been involved in transforming and shaping
Yeah,
the
I've tried
lives of many African Americans.
Right. In fact, as a student, I guess like many of us, I was involved in black student unions at Indiana, and was always sort of the Negro in trouble, as it were, for taking stances that were not always popular. But those were very formative years, as you imply. And from Atlanta, as I said, I was at Atlanta University and a master's in political science, and then worked for a little while as a community organizer on Auburn Avenue, as a matter of fact. Interacted with some of the giants of the community at that time, William Holmes Borders. Interacted in the sense of a community organizer,
right.
Not in the sense of a confidant or anything. And that was a very exciting time too. And then the muse called, so to speak, and I wanted to write poetry.
Well,
and
that's all right.
But you really don't make much money doing that. So I went back to graduate school and at Indiana, where I got my doctorate in English, and from there, various positions in African American Studies. In fact, I was the founding director of the Institute for African American Studies at the University of Georgia. And that was a very exciting time because that was not what they hired me for, but the ancestors directed me to help them get that understanding.
Right.
And so we were able to do that. And I'm very happy that that institute still exists. And and we moved on, directed or headed the Department of African American Studies at the University of Cincinnati for a time. And my wife and I, Dr. Clarissa Myrick-Harris, formed a community group that was a foundation for a school that we started, preschool through the 7th grade, called the African American Academy.
Right.
Yeah, it was chartered by the Ohio Board of Regents, or the Ohio Department of Education. We weren't able to do things the way we wanted to. We lasted for a couple of years, and when we closed, we had about 117 kids.
I remember a conversation with your wife regarding school, and she was saying that you all were making such a powerful impact that around the time of the Million Man March, you all even received bomb threats and things because of the fact that you really were not only educating but uplifting the community, and you were a shining example in spite of the lack of the government's follow-through with what they said they were going to do.
Right, I think that's a good point, the uplift part. And I think it derived from the fact that we had a holistic approach towards education. For example, when a lot of our preschoolers came in, 3-4-year-old little boys from the projects in that part of Cincinnati, who were really learning to disrespect women at a very early age. And they were, in their own little ways, terrorizing our preschool teachers. We had a partnership with the Nation of Islam, and we hired one of their members to work in the preschool. And within a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, those little boys were just as mannerable as they could be. They were respectful of the teachers, and it was just a profound transformation. So I credit that to the kind of approach to education that has love as a foundation. And understanding that we're all spiritual beings, and that's the part that you want to excite. That's the part that you want to ignite, because when you do that, what happens is that it orders everything else.
Absolutely.
You don't have to think about it. You know what to do.
Right.
So
you're in tune.
Exactly it. The kids were in tune. We had maybe 3rd, 4th graders coming to us. I keep talking about the boys because they were often the ones who were singled out for trouble in public schools. And a number of the boys who came to us were on Ritalin. Their parents asked our counsel about that, and we made it clear that we were not medical doctors and that we, could not, have intelligent things to say about that drug that way, but that we could provide an environment that would be respectful and loving of their children within an African tradition. And most of those kids were off Ritalin by the time they finished with what we were doing.
That's so profound that you would say that, because so many aspects of building a family and building a nation are not regarded as being as important as others. And certainly the diet and the environment play a key role in a child's learning ability. And just with the quote by Kwame Nkrumah that, the hand that rocks the cradle builds a nation. Certainly your mother laid a very strong foundation, and then you have perpetuated it, throughout your life's work. At this time, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and take a look at some of the things that you're doing now. Very, very exciting. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay, thanks for joining us again. We're here once again with Dr. Norman Harris, very profound educator in our community, and he's shared a little bit about his background with us, and now he's going to go into the product that he and his wife have developed to assist in the upliftment of our community through incorporating their holistic views in the educational process.
Right, our product is called Black Studies 101, The Journey. And we called it Black Studies 101 because we wanted to define it as a foundation. And it's a piece of educational software that attempts to reach people regardless of their particular learning styles. I was very cognizant of the fact that people, in building this, we were very cognizant of the fact that people learn differently.
Yes.
And that to ignite the thing inside of you, the spirit inside of you, requires different approaches. It can't all be text. It can't all be pictures. It can't all be sound. So what we did in putting this together was to try to find an appropriate mix of music, of video, of text, of assessments, and just make it exciting and pretty, so that it becomes something that learning, a lot of times when we think about learning, it's like punishment,
Right,
it's something
right.
that, they're doing it to me, I have to go. But no, it can be fun. And so that was what we had in mind.
Well, it sounds like you hit the nail on the head, because in having children of my own and going through their educational processing, I found a lot of times they were just really bored and not stimulated by the way the subjects were being taught. A lot of people believe that segregation had its positive effects for us as a people, because we knew how to address our own needs. And even though integration, particularly functional integration, has its advantages, our people somehow confused the concepts of assimilation and integration.
Right.
So we started allowing others to teach our children, and those others did not have our best interests. Not only that, they didn't know our children.
Right.
So we have produced now generations of people that really not only are at a disadvantage, but they just don't even have a clue about where to go, how they got here, and what to do about it.
Well, I think a lot of, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying, that one of the goals of our school was to reintegrate the black community by having different classes within the black community, those who were on public assistance, those who were professionals like my family, those who were middle class, and our community group really reflected that. And our feeling was exactly that. We have somehow, those of us who have found ways to make contributions to the world have distanced ourselves from those in our communities who have the greatest need. That's not a universal statement, but I think functionally we see some of the results in terms of the way we think about education. Just as you've said it, we have just really brutalize the imaginations and the spirits of children.
Ooh, that's so true.
We've done it in
That's
such
so
a
true.
way that children equate success with a kind of flatness, a kind of quality of being
Sterility.
bland, sterility.
Yes.
I think that's strong but correct. And it's all about a kind of predictability that they're being educated to live by. And that may sound a bit strong, but if you think about the stress on standardized testing, why? When all the people who do education seriously talk about the fact that there are multiple intelligences, multiple learning styles, multiple ways of assessing, multiple ways of teaching, yet we have the country just sort of going, all these kids being forced down a single chute of assessment with a number 2 pencil. I mean, that's like the sword of your head.
That's right.
You're going to be stabbed with it.
Would you like to take some time and show our viewers a little bit about the program itself?
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Want to take a break, or we're going to jump right into it?
Take a break.
Okay. This is the opening screen for Black Studies 101, the product we've been talking about. You notice that we decided to do this as a collage. Some of the folk on the screen you see very clearly. Here's W.B. Du Bois. Below him, perhaps less clear, there's a protest in the 60s over here. And then over on this side of the screen, we have my lovely wife, my children up here, and my other daughter over here. And the reason we did it this way is to enforce the fact that history is about all of us, not only about the famous people, but also about those that we know less about. Let's get started here. Let's go in first. This is a table of contents. And from the table of contents, you can go just about anywhere in the software. One of the features that most people like is Today in Black History. So let's take a look at that. Depending on your birthday, let's choose mine. My birthday is May, So we pop that up, and what we get, if we move over here, we turn the page. My birthday is May 23rd, and what you see is that on each day of the month, there is a listing of events in black history. Lee Brown is named the first African-American police chief of Houston, Texas, on this day in 1962, and so it goes. So for each month of the year, for each day of the year, there is something about black history. Let's go back to this section for a moment. This is called African World Chronologies. Each one of these chronologies is introduced with maybe a minute and a half, a 2-minute video that gives you information about the historical period. The video pops up by itself, and while the video is playing, you can also scroll down and take a look at what's going on in black history. Here's our video. So even if you don't know a great deal about African American history, just simply going through these chronologies is very instructive. One of the sections that we really wanted to make an attention getter is called the Black Studies 101 Source Books. And this section is introduced with music, flashing video in the background. And I put the music in because we wanted to make it clear that this was a place to come back to. We wanted to associate it with fun. You can also turn the music off, as I've just done. Each one of these source books is introduced with a little musical interlude. Then there's a source book that pops up that the learners can read, questions and so forth. Just want to show you a couple very quickly here. One of my favorites is African Civilizations. And this little man here traces the first out-migration from Africa. We go back here. We go to Attacks on Civilization. And this is an image of the slave ship, the Middle Passage from Africa to South America, up to the Caribbean, and to North America. You should remember, each one of these books, each one of these pages has a book. So if you want to go and get more information, you can do that. But if you just simply want to deal with the imagery of it, you can do that too. This particular one is called Creative Expressions, one of my favorites. And these are just the names of African American creative artists, African world creative artists. Miriam Makeba, John Coltrane, Toni Morrison, Beethoven. Yeah, Beethoven. Found out about that. And you can scroll down here and find out, just got a listing of creative artists. One of the things that we did also was to create a source book that allows, if you're connected to the internet, each one of these is a site on the internet that gives you additional information about these people, about African world creativity. The 60s, my favorite period. Yeah, we got the police going on. Period of great protest. This particular source book is one that I adopted from a book I wrote when I was on the faculty at the University of Georgia. I was teaching the class in social change. Didn't have a book, so I wrote one. Let's go back to the table of contents. The video resources section is fairly substantial. The major video is The Journey, which, as we noted earlier, was produced by the Apex Museum. Okay. There's a lot more to do here. I'm told that I'm getting too excited and we can't go on forever. But there's an opportunity to build your knowledge, take little quick quizzes, and if you get the answer right, that's what you hear. If you get it wrong, you don't hear anything. So, we invite your interest in Black Studies 101. It is a product that has something for every grade level.
Wow, that was an awesome presentation. I'm really, really excited about it, and I know our viewers are too. How are you able to incorporate the information so that everyone can benefit from it? Because it seems so diverse. So could a child tap into it, or would an elder,
absolutely.
an adult?
I think our earlier conversation about the way spirit works. We live in a spiritual universe, and sometimes it's difficult to talk about that in terms of computer technology and information technology. But what better mechanical, electronic medium to use as an example of that. Here we can reach the world almost through thought. But it's the variety of expression, right? The opportunity for people to come in wherever they are. In the African American tradition, we talk about the doors of the church always being open. And that's the way the software was built, so that the doors of the church are always open. It doesn't matter what level you're on. There is a way into it for you. So if you're a child, I mean, if you're dealing with, elementary school students who have an interest, or you want them to have an interest, the videos are fine. I mean, there are a lot of them. And just simply clicking through those and listening, is very instructive, right? If you're dealing with somebody who wants to go a little deeper, then the source books are there. You can read those. If you really want to test yourself, we have quizzes there that you saw a little bit of. Some of the quizzes we have arranged so that the assessments are graded, and so on. So it's, if you will, if you want to think about it, it's sort of like a graduated approach to the spirit, a graduated approach to spiritual development. I mean, you come in where you are,
right,
and you can go as far as you like.
Well, it has been said that you are what you think, and you think based on what you have been exposed to.
Right.
And if we are to truly see ourselves in our past greatness so that we have some clue about what that looks like,
right,
then this sounds like this is an excellent tool. How do you address the issue of children that perhaps do not have access to computers? Will the school systems be carrying this, or?
That's an excellent question. At this point, we have Clayton County Schools has made the largest single purchase, and we're in discussions with DeKalb County, with the Atlanta Public School System, and with soon with Fayette County.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've been watching the news, but I think it's Michelle Williams at the Apex has raised questions about a third grade text in which slavery is depicted as almost a Caribbean vacation. And so she has arranged and has invited me to meet with the assistant superintendent of that school system, and we'll share this with them, and we'll share some other things that we're doing that have to do with with Georgia history.
Right.
So with the Clayton County deal, I think they're going to put it on a network. So all the kids in that system, however they want to arrange it, will have access to the software via the network. In building this, we built out from the belief systems, which are the core. It's like the hub, and everything else is attached to that hub. We start with the Palo de Terro, or the Tree of Life, the Kemetic Tree of Life,
yes,
with the 11 branches, Amen, Osir, Tahuti, Ma'at, Harukahudi, who do we have? Haru, Sebek, Heteru, and Oset, and Geb. And so we talk about the attributes of each one of those branches of the Tree of Life. We also have the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa that most people are familiar with: Umoja, Kuji, Chagalia, Ujima, Ujamaa, Nia, Kuumba, and Imani.
Yes.
Yeah, at the core of the learning project.
And so in showing these systems, do you also show the way in which these systems were the foundation for the major religions that most people practice today?
Excellent point. In fact, that's what we call them. I mean, we talk about the African foundations for civilization.
Excellent.
And it really needs to be understood that way. The 142 negative confessions, the laws of Ma'at, really the foundations for the ethical systems for most religions, Western or otherwise. This is not remarkable. If you look at the source book that traces the first out migration from Africa, and Africans didn't leave Africa. They didn't erase their minds and spirits when they left.
Right.
They took them with them,
right,
and throughout the world. And we talk about the African influence on culture, on spirituality, is global. And that's why when you really begin to study these systems, you see so many connections among them because they have a single source.
right,
The African Eve, the African Adam, or if you want the appropriate African name for that.
And what I'm gathering, too, is that in a sense this is like a computerized griot because it's in fact giving a chronology of our history. And, you know, for those who don't know, the griots in our communities and our ancient cultures were always the ones who recorded our history and then shared it with our people so that the history could be a living experience. And it seems to me that just being able to view the material and learn about it, it touches a place in the spirit that activates our ancestral memory, which is encoded in our DNA. And as a result of that, I could really see the strong connection of spirit, of free-flowing energy, and technology.
Right. You know, it's interesting that the point that you make. At the end of the story, the battle between Heru and Set, Set is found guilty of not being true of word and deed, and his punishment is to use his gift of communication to spread the word of Osir. And that's the way I view technology, as the Sebekian gift of communication to spread the word in griot style
concept.
Via Tahuti as wisdom.
Yes.
Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you so very much for sharing. Like I said, I'm really excited about it. I know our viewers want to know how to get the information to get in touch with you.
Sure.
So please share that with us.
Sure. They can visit our website, which is www.oneworldarchives.com. One is spelled out, www.oneworldarchives.com. Educators can request a review copy, an evaluation copy, and it's on sale from the website. And we appreciate this opportunity. It's been great.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And much success.
Okay.
I want one.
Okay. We can do that.
Okay, great.
Thank you. We're here with Dr. Harris.
Yes.
And I appreciate you coming on the show. And what we try to do is ensure that everyone that views the program gets something that they can go back with. And so as we talk about the 4 tenets of holistic wellness, you know, mind, body, spirit, and emotion, understanding there's more than those. Right. It could go to any length, up or down. How do you see your work, you know, not your program, but your work, affecting the wellness of those you touch as it relates to the 4 tenets that we're discussing?
Well, I think a lot of us are educated to be blocked. That is, we're educated to see ourselves through other people's eyes. And as a consequence, our power, our ability to heal ourselves, our ability to be useful to other people, our ability to be useful to ourselves is all hemmed in by the way we see ourselves. That is, it's almost as if you were applying makeup and you were in a carnival
clown.
Well, in one of those tents where they have the funny mirrors, the concave mirrors, and you're putting the makeup on, and you come out, your lips are up here. Well, it's that kind of thing in terms of the way we're educated. So my contribution, our contribution, is to try to awaken a kind of native intelligence, a kind of native spirituality that precedes and supersedes the ways that we're educated away from ourselves. So we're trying to connect people up to themselves by showing them various doors through which they can travel.
Well, that's a good note to end on. Okay. I believe that the unifying frequency of life is that thing we call love. Yeah. And well, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
There's only one thing, and we're all experiencing it from our own point of view. Thanks for joining us. We'll see.